Hello and welcome to FinextraTV's Thought Leadership series. I'm Hannah Wallace, and in this interview we're going to be talking about how customer-centric strategies are accelerating digital transformation and going beyond individual products to an intuitive end-to-end experience, and also we'll be covering why it's becoming difficult for financial institutions to balance compliance and strategy. So to help us and sort of guide us through the topic now is Dudley White, Senior Vice President and General Manager, Payments, Financial and Risk Management Solutions at Fiserv. So hello, Dudley. Thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you, Hannah. I really appreciate it. Really glad to be on.
So yes, there's quite a lot to fit in there. So could we start off, though, by briefly highlighting some of the high-level shifts you're seeing in the payments industry? Let's start there.
Sure. I think the biggest change that I'm seeing is, quite honestly, the pace of change. Institutions are having to do transformative projects in parallel, complex projects, and payment infrastructure modernizations. Projects that in the past would take 18 to 24 months are taking a fraction of the time. We recently had a Fiserv annual payments transformation survey, and there were some really interesting trends and themes there. There were, the impact of ISO compliance is really driving a lot of the modernization. I would say real-time and instant payments is real, right? The race to get to real-time is critical, as well as open banking and APIs continue to be at the forefront. But I'd say there's three other emerging trends. Looking at the data that is surrounding the payment and the monetization of not only the payment, but the data that supports the payment as well is becoming quite critical. The investment in predictive fraud, so payment fraud is becoming more and more at the forefront. And then here at Fiserv, we're in a very unique position because of the merchant business as well as the payment business, and starting to look through our payment hub technology at full end-to-end, right? So payment as a service is another emerging trend that we're seeing quite a bit.
All right, and we'll talk a bit more about the monetization of data further on, but I want to talk a bit more about legacy systems as well. So when we talk about legacy systems, we think of them as owned by organizations, but the hardware that supports multiple payment rails is becoming expensive, isn't it? So can you maybe compare and contrast the options of in-house versus outsourced versus the payment as a service model? What about that?
Sure. So we support multiple deployment options. We'll find with most of our larger institutions, they'll just take the licensed software and they'll bring it in-house. They have mature IT shops, and they prefer to manage on their own, whether it's their own infrastructure, whether it's the public cloud. There's multiple options. We also provide the ability to host the platform, and we have different options regarding within our data center. We have strategic partnerships with public cloud providers as well, AWS or Microsoft Azure. So our ability to also provide managed services in the public cloud allows us to go down market for those tier 2 and tier 3 banks who really just want a managed service capability and not have to take on all the necessary risk as far as the costs associated from an infrastructure, as well as managing the environment.
And of course, with payments revenue becoming marginal, we're seeing an increase in the value of rich information and data, and this is becoming more and more apparent, isn't it? So how do financial institutions and their customers gain access to this data, but also how can we turn this into monetized products and services? What about that?
Sure. So this is actually a big area of focus for us. So we've invested quite a bit in our data lake technology over the past 2 years, and it really satisfies the premium product features that our institution needs. There's really three key areas there, right? So everything on the complexity on historical storage, all of that payment data, whether it's structured and unstructured, our data lake technology is able to store that data and then present that data. And as I said, it's been a big area of focus. Our advanced analytics capabilities. So these are some of the premium features that allows institution to further monetize things like liquidity, predictive monitoring, processing efficiencies, treasury management. exception intelligence, portfolio analysis. These are the types of advanced analytics that we're seeing a lot of traction as we're showing our new and enriched dashboards. It's really helping, once again, the data associated with the payment is becoming just as powerful as the payment. Our BI and reporting capability, being able to provide real-time dashboards with various personas, things like historical trends and overall operational monitoring are some of the key themes around just that whole monetization of the data.
Well, thank you for clearing that up and some good guidance there as well. And finally then, what would you suggest are the sort of next steps as we head into 2021, and what are your top predictions for next year?
Next steps, I think that this is becoming a really complex ecosystem. And I would say for any institution, first understand your strategy. And when you look at the overall payment strategies, there used to be more of the consumer and the commercial side. We're seeing more of joint strategies. I mentioned before the whole concept of looking at your merchant and payments business, so looking at payments as a service. So first start with your end in mind. What is your overall strategy? And then I would say from there, really focus on foundational components. I think gone are the days of the whole concept of big bang. We have a payment hub technology that is able to be that foundational piece, our enterprise payment platform. And then from there, having a strategic roadmap that allows you to incrementally add value onto that platform while you're in the same time, the whole overall simplification and reduction of cost, addressing compliance issues, as I mentioned before. But get foundational in, understand what your roadmap will be for incremental functionality, and really try and measure the lift associated with each payment type, with each clearing, everything around that whole payment ecosystem, coupled with some of the things I mentioned, data analytics, the predictive fraud, and looking at payments as a service as a whole. So first start with the strategy, build your foundation, and then incrementally add, I would say, would be my advice moving forward. So I'd say things to really look for in 2021. I mentioned predictive fraud before. I think a continued advancement from a payments perspective in artificial intelligence and machine learning, not only for the fraud piece, but what I mentioned before regarding data analytics. So a lot of investment in AI and ML. I also think that the whole concept of microservices and being able to have your payments hub technology and being able to then partner with additional third-party providers and not necessarily needing a full solution, but exposing services to your partners, exposing services to your customers, working within that ecosystem is going to be we've already seen that now. I think you're going to see even more adoption moving forward. And, once again, I talked about ISO. The push for ISO is going to be a continued driver. The focus on compliance is going to really force simplification within the payment infrastructure.
Some big developments to keep an eye on and a space to watch. But Dudley, thank you so much for calling in and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure, so thank you.
All righty, thank you so much. Have a great day.